My girlfriend turned my depression into her online personality, and I didn't realize until it was too late. You know those people who seem too good at being supportive? The ones who say all the right things? Who somehow always know the perfect way to comfort you? That was Anna, or at least, that's who I thought she was. We met at a friend's party 2 years ago. I was quiet. She was magnetic. Not loud, but warm in a way that made you want to orbit around her. She noticed me sitting alone on the porch, fiddling with a beer I wasn't drinking, and just sat beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world. No pity, no pressure, just presence. We started talking, about nothing at first, then about everything. By the time the party was over, I'd told her things I hadn't said to anyone in years. How I'd struggled with anxiety since college. How I'd been through a rough depressive episode that cost me a job. How some mornings I woke up and felt like gravity was stronger for me than everyone else. She didn't flinch. She nodded, listened, told me her brother had gone through something similar. She said, "You're not broken. You're just tired. That's okay." That line stuck with me for months. We started dating soon after. At first, it felt like the kind of relationship people write songs about. She was attentive, gentle, patient with my bad days. When I'd cancel plans because I couldn't face crowds, she'd show up with takeout and a dumb movie. When I forgot to eat, she'd cook. When I couldn't sleep, she'd stay up talking until I could. She called me her work in progress. It sounded affectionate back then, like she saw potential in me, not weakness. The first 6 months were almost peaceful. I thought I'd finally found someone who didn't see my mental health as a burden. Then she started posting. At first it was harmless stuff, couple photos, little captions like, "So proud of how far he's come," or "Mental health matters." I didn't mind, awareness is good, right? But then it got specific. She started writing long, emotional captions about how watching someone you love struggle with inner demons teaches you what love really is. About holding someone through their darkness. The first time she posted something like that, she tagged me. The comments flooded in. "You're an angel. He's lucky to have you. You're so strong." And yeah, maybe I was lucky. Maybe she was strong. But reading hundreds of strangers talk about how heroic she was for putting up with me made me feel like an exhibit. I told her, half joking, that it made me uncomfortable. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Oh, babe, don't be embarrassed. People need to see what real love looks like." I wanted to believe her. Over time, her tone shifted. Her posts became less about us and more about her role in my struggle. She wrote about learning to love someone who can't always love themselves. She'd film short clips of us cooking or walking and overlay them with melancholy music and captions like, "He's trying, and that's enough." Every time one of those videos blew up, she'd be giddy. "Look, 20K views. People really connect with it." I'd smile weakly and say I was happy for her, but inside it felt wrong, like she was narrating my pain for applause. Then came the awareness posts. She started joining mental health advocacy groups online, at first under her name, then under a pseudonym. Healing through him. She told me it was just a support space. I thought that was great. Community helps. But I didn't realize what kind of support she was getting. Looking back, I can see the little red flags. Whenever I had a bad day, she'd ask detailed questions about how I felt, how heavy the anxiety was, whether I'd cried, if I'd eaten. At first, I thought she was being caring, but later I noticed she'd pull out her phone after our conversations, typing quickly, sometimes smiling softly at the screen. Once I caught a glimpse, just enough to read the line she'd written before she locked the screen. He finally opened up about his suicidal thoughts again today. I held him until he fell asleep. Except that didn't happen. I hadn't said that. And that's when I started to realize she wasn't just sharing my story. She was writing it. The change wasn't instant. It was slow, sneaky. She started framing me as a project, talking to friends about how much progress I'd made, like she was reporting on an experiment. She'd interrupt me when I tried to explain myself, saying, No, you're better now, remember?" I wasn't better. I was confused, exhausted, and quietly terrified that the person I loved didn't see me anymore, just a version of me that made her look like a savior. I told my best friend Mark that something felt off. He shrugged it off at first, said maybe I was overthinking, but then he started noticing too. "She talks about you like you're her project," he said one night after dinner, "like she's your therapist." I laughed it off. I didn't want to admit he was right. The breaking point came on our 1-year anniversary. She surprised me with a video montage, photos, clips, music, and said she wanted to post it to celebrate our journey. When she hit play, I realized it wasn't a celebration. It was a documentary. There were clips of me looking anxious at restaurants, recordings of my voice when I was half asleep, screenshots of texts where I'd opened up about panic attacks. The video ended with her voiceover. "He taught me that love means showing up, even when it's ugly." She looked at me with tears in her eyes, waiting for me to say something. I couldn't. I just felt exposed. All I managed was, "Did you have to share all of that?" She frowned. "It's inspiring. People need to know they're not alone." "But it's my life," I said quietly. "It's our story," she corrected. That's when I knew something inside me had cracked. After the anniversary video, something between us shifted. I started noticing how often she'd check her phone when we were together. The screen was always glowing. Notifications, DMs, comments, hearts. I told myself it was normal. Everyone's glued to their phone these days. But Anna wasn't scrolling mindlessly. She was engaged. It was like she was running customer service for her own reputation. She'd show me snippets of her messages sometimes. "Look," she'd say, "this woman says she hasn't left her bed in weeks, but my post about you got her to see a therapist." I nodded, trying to smile, but inside I was shrinking, because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about her, her followers, her savior complex disguised as empathy. At night, she'd read comments aloud like bedtime stories. She said I'm brave. This one called me an inspiration. "Can you believe how many people find comfort in us?" Us. There was no us in it. It was me as a backdrop for her martyrdom. Every heart emoji felt like a tiny betrayal. I started noticing how she'd bring up my anxiety in casual conversations, at dinner parties, with coworkers, with strangers. "He's doing so much better now," she'd beam. "You should have seen how bad it used to be." And everyone would look at her like she was a saint. Once she said that in front of my friend Mark. He looked at me, uncomfortable. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I could feel people's eyes on me like spotlights. "Yeah," I said weakly, "I'm doing better." Anna squeezed my hand under the table, smiling. The smile you give a pet for behaving. A few weeks later, I got sick, a real normal flu. I texted her that I was staying home, half dead on the couch. Within an hour, she showed up with soup, tea, the whole nurse routine. Sweet, right? Until I saw her take a picture of the tray next to me while I was coughing. She captioned it, "Taking care of my person through thick and thin, love through struggle." I didn't even have the energy to argue. I just closed my eyes and pretended to sleep while she adjusted the lighting for another shot. Something inside me started hardening. Every time she posted, I'd scroll through the comments like a masochist. "She's incredible. I wish I had a girlfriend like that. He's so lucky." Lucky. That word started tasting bitter because I was beginning to realize something ugly. She didn't want me to get better. My pain was her brand. The more I healed, the less she had to show the world. One night I asked her what she'd do if I ever stopped struggling. She laughed softly. "You'll always have something to work on, babe. Everyone does." I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, and for a split second, I saw what she didn't mean for me to see: fear. The fear of losing relevance, losing purpose, losing her story. That was when I started keeping things to myself again. I stopped telling her when I felt anxious, stopped venting about work, stopped giving her new material. She noticed, of course. "Why are you shutting me out?" she asked one night. "I'm just tired," I said. "Of what?" I hesitated. "Of being your project." She laughed, but there was an edge to it. "That's not fair. You know I care about you." "I know," I said. "But sometimes it feels like you care more about being seen caring." She didn't answer, just picked up her phone, scrolling. The real turning point came by accident. I was working late. Her laptop opened on the desk because mine had died. She'd logged into her email, and I just needed to print something. That's when I saw the folder. Collabs. Curious, I opened it. Inside were brand deals, mental health sponsors, a candle company, a meditation app, a podcast invite titled Dating Someone with Depression. And there it was, our story, written out in pitch format. She'd turned my breakdown into a case study. She described how her partner's ongoing battle with anxiety had inspired her mission to help others. There were bullet points, emotional beats, a closing paragraph about hope. Reading it felt like being dissected. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch until dawn, scrolling through her pages. Her public account looked normal enough. But then I found something else, a link buried in one of her bios. Anonymous Community for Caregivers, it said. I clicked it. It led to a forum, a private one. But her profile was public. Her username was the same one I'd seen before. Healing Through Him. She had thousands of posts. I started reading them. Each one was about me. Not directly, but the details were unmistakable. My age, my job, our city, my habits. She changed my name, but the story was the same. She wrote about my panic attacks, my therapy sessions, the time I cried in her car after a work review. But she told them like parables. He said he doesn't know why I stay, but love isn't about ease. It's about endurance. He doesn't realize how much strength it takes to love someone like him. Sometimes I wonder if I'm losing myself, but he needs me more. And below each post, hundreds of comments. You're so strong. He's lucky to have someone like you. You're an angel. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might throw up. I kept scrolling, faster and faster, reading the pieces of myself she'd turned into content. My worst nights, rewritten as inspirational lessons. My shame, wrapped in hashtags. My privacy, repackaged for engagement. It wasn't empathy, it was performance. I confronted her the next morning. I was shaking, holding her phone out, screen glowing with one of the posts. What the hell is this? She looked at it calmly, then at me. That's my support group. You call this support? You told thousands of people about me, about things I never told anyone else. Her voice softened, the tone she used when I was spiraling. You're overreacting. I never used your name. I laughed. It came out harsh and ugly. You described everything. Anyone who knows me could put it together. You're twisting this, she said quietly. You always twist things when you're upset. I do this to help people. To help yourself, I snapped. To get attention. She blinked, eyes glossy. You think I enjoy this? You think it's easy to be with someone like you? That shut me up, because there it was, the truth under the sugar, the thing she'd been hinting at for months. I just stood there, numb. So that's what I am to you, a burden that gets you followers. She didn't deny it. For the first time, I packed my bag before she could talk me out of it. She cried, of course, begged me not to throw away what we built. She said, you can't leave me, not when people look up to us. That line stuck with me. Not when people look up to us. Not me, not us. People. Strangers. It wasn't love she wanted. It was an audience. I walked out anyway. I stayed at Mark's place for a few weeks after that. I didn't tell anyone the details, just that it was over. But she did. Of course she did. Within days, her followers knew we'd broken up. She posted a long message about loving someone who isn't ready to be loved and learning to choose herself. Her fans flooded the comments again. You did your best. He didn't deserve you. You're free now. I didn't reply. I just sat in silence, reading the obituary of a relationship I barely recognized. For the first few weeks after I left Anna, I tried to stay offline. I deleted social apps from my phone, blocked her main account, avoided mutual friends. I wanted quiet, no noise, no updates, no analysis of what had happened. But quiet has a way of filling with echoes. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the posts, the words she'd written. He needs me more. He doesn't realize how hard it is for me. Mark said I should ignore it. She'll move on to the next thing, he said. People like that always do. I wanted to believe him, But then the messages started. At first, they came through my email, then DMs on the one social account I'd forgotten to lock down. The first one said, "You should be ashamed of how you treated her." The second, "You made her anxiety worse. You manipulated her." The third, "She tried so hard to save you." I read them sitting on the floor of my apartment, my stomach turning to ice. Someone had to be feeding them that story. Someone had to be posting again. I went online, logged into a blank browser, and searched her pseudonym, Healing Through Him. The profile picture had changed, but it was still hers. I could tell by the background, the way her handwriting looked in the quote graphics. The page was active, very active. New posts, new stories. She hadn't stopped. She'd evolved. The first new post was a black square with white text. "Sometimes you have to walk away from the person you were trying to save." The caption underneath was longer than a paragraph, filled with poetic sadness. He said I made him feel small. I was only trying to love him back to life. It had over 20,000 likes, thousands of comments cheering her on. I scrolled, post after post, painting her as the martyr. She was telling our story like it was a cautionary tale about self-sacrifice, and people were eating it up. Then I saw something worse, screenshots, blurry photos of old text conversations, my messages, out of context, chopped up, rearranged. They looked like I'd been cruel, cold, ungrateful. I could almost feel the blood drain from my body. I hadn't even realized she'd saved those. The caption said, "He told me to stop caring, so I did." That post had 70K likes, comments full of empathy for her and rage for me. Strangers calling me a narcissist, an abuser, a sociopath. I hadn't said a single word publicly, and somehow I'd already been assigned the villain's role. For 3 days, I didn't leave my apartment. I couldn't. Every time I tried to focus on work, my mind spun out. I imagined people Googling me, recognizing me through the tiny details she'd left in her stories. My job, my city, the hints about my life. I kept thinking about how it started. Just one post about love and endurance. And now it was a whole mythology. She wasn't just telling my story anymore. She was curating it, editing it into something tragic, cinematic, viral. One morning, half asleep and sick of my own thoughts, I did something stupid. I made a fake account, a blank profile, no name, no face. I followed her page. Within hours, I was scrolling through her newest series, How to Love Someone Who Doesn't Love Themselves. Each post had titles like chapters. Chapter 1, The Beginning. He was soft-spoken and sad. Chapter 2, The Breakdowns. I held him through his storms. Chapter 3, The Ending. He chose silence instead of healing. She'd turned our relationship into a serialized story, and people were writing essays in the comments about their own partners, their own broken men, how she was a beacon for them. It was surreal. I was reading about myself in third person. Then came the anonymous messages from her followers. One said, "You sound just like the guy she talked about." Another, "Are you sure you're not the one who hurt her?" They'd found me. Somehow, some way, her audience had connected the dots. I had never used my name publicly, but they recognized the patterns, the places, maybe even the tattoos she described in some post meant to sound relatable. I tried to ignore it, but one message got to me. It said, "I'm in her private support group. You should see what she says about you there." Attached was a screenshot. The group was hidden behind an invite link, but the screenshot was clear enough. She'd been posting in a smaller, more exclusive circle. There, she wasn't the inspirational girlfriend. She was the survivor. The story had evolved again. Now she claimed I'd manipulated her emotionally, that I'd used my mental health as an excuse to isolate her, that I'd shouted, belittled, controlled. None of it was true, but reading it still made me question everything. That's how good she was at narrative. She even had me doubting my own memories. I scrolled through the screenshot, zooming in, reading replies. People believed her. People offered her donations, free therapy sessions, even job opportunities. One message said, "You deserve a documentary." I sat back and laughed, a dry, broken sound. She didn't need to lie to destroy me. All she needed was a good story. The following week, Mark came over and found me sitting in the dark, scrolling through the comments again. "You've got to stop reading that," he said. "I can't. It's like watching a car crash I caused but don't remember." He asked if I'd considered legal action. Defamation, privacy violations, something. But she was careful. No names, no photos, just enough anonymity to stay untouchable. And if I spoke up, I'd look like the bitter ex trying to ruin her healing journey. So I didn't. I just sat there and let it happen. One night, I got another message from that same anonymous user. There's another account. She runs it too. The account name was Reclaiming Foreigners from Him. When I found it, my breath caught. The bio read, "Stories from survivors of emotional neglect, inspired by my own journey." The posts were short, raw paragraphs, written in first person, full of tears and poetic metaphors about surviving manipulation. But they weren't general. They were all specific. One used a quote I'd once said to her, "Some days I don't want to die, but I don't want to exist either." I'd said that one night when we were lying in bed, my head on her chest, whispering the things I was too ashamed to say out loud. Now it had 300,000 likes. People commented things like, "This line broke me. I've never related to something so deeply. You're saving lives. Chidi." And there it was again, the validation she craved, the audience she built from my private confessions. The worst part? I couldn't even be angry in the way I wanted to be, because some of the people in those comments did find comfort. They were hurting too. She had weaponized my pain for empathy, and somehow it worked. I remember sitting there thinking, maybe she wasn't evil. Maybe she just needed love like I did. Maybe we were both using each other in different ways. That thought scared me more than the lies. Weeks turned into months. The messages slowed. The storm online moved on to something else. A new tragedy, a new cause. Anna kept posting, but less frequently. Her captions turned vague. She started a podcast about healing journeys. I never listened. Sometimes curiosity got the better of me. I'd search her name, scroll, find her face smiling in some new interview about mental health advocacy. She always looked calm, centered, healed, and I'd sit there wondering how many people she'd built her peace on. I finally went back to therapy. My therapist listened quietly while I explained everything. The betrayal, the public exposure, the humiliation. She said, "You don't just need to heal from her. You need to heal from being turned into a story." That sentence hit me harder than anything else, because that's what it was. I'd become a character, a symbol, a lesson. And when someone turns you into a story, the truth stops mattering. I've thought about writing my side before, not for revenge, but to reclaim it, to tell people what it actually feels like when your trauma becomes someone else's aesthetic. Maybe that's what this post is, my small, imperfect attempt at taking my story back. But if there's one thing I learned from her, it's that the line between vulnerability and performance is thin. So I'm writing this with no hashtags, no lessons, no poetic endings. Just honesty. I love someone who used my pain like currency. And for a while, I let her because I wanted to believe she saw something in me worth saving. Now I'm learning to see it myself. A month after I started therapy, I finally hit a point where silence felt heavier than speaking. My therapist said, "You can't control her narrative, but you can write your own." At first, I brushed it off, but that line festered in my mind. I didn't want to go viral. I didn't want a war. I just wanted to exist outside her story. So one night, sitting in my dimly lit apartment, I opened a blank Reddit account. This one. No photos, no names, no links. Just words. I wrote out everything. How it started, how it grew, what it cost me. I pressed post. I expected maybe a few comments. A few people saying, "That's messed up." Instead, my notifications exploded. People recognized the pattern. Some even recognized her. They didn't say her name, but they described her posts. This sounds like that influencer who talks about her broken ex. Someone else commented, "I always felt uneasy about her tone. I sat there for hours watching strangers dismantle her story, not out of hate, but out of recognition. It was surreal. I hadn't planned revenge, but seeing truth ripple through the noise felt like breathing after being underwater. By morning, she knew. The first message came through email. "I can't believe you'd humiliate me like this." Then another. "You're lying about me to thousands of people." Then, "Take it down or I'll take legal action." I didn't reply. I forwarded the emails to a folder named Proof. Within a day, she made a post. A black and white selfie, tear-streaked face captioned, "It's painful when someone you love turns your story into their weapon." The comments poured in again. Sympathy, outrage, solidarity. Her fans were back in her corner. But this time, the tide was split. People asked questions. "Didn't you use his story first? Why are there screenshots of things you posted about him?" The thread fractured her audience. She messaged me again that night. "Can we just talk, please?" I stared at the words for a long time. My chest tightened. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her, because I knew that tone. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Fear of losing control of the narrative. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. We met at the same coffee shop where we'd first said, "I love you." She came in wearing a beige coat, sunglasses, the kind of outfit meant to look casual but planned down to the detail. When she saw me, she smiled, small, rehearsed. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was soft, but not shaky. She wasn't broken. She was calculating. "I just want to understand why," she said. "You could have called me. You didn't have to write all that." "You wrote about me first," I said. "That was different. I was trying to help people. By lying," her jaw tightened. "By sharing my experience. You were part of it, but it was still mine." I almost laughed. "So, what? You own my pain now?" She sighed. "You're twisting this again." There it was, the line she always used. "Twisting this. It used to work. It used to make me doubt myself." But this time, I just looked at her and said, "No, I'm straightening it." She didn't expect that. For a second, she dropped the act. Her face softened. "You don't know what it's like to love someone who's always hurting," she said. "You made me feel needed. Then you took that away." I stared at her, trying to find the person I once loved somewhere in that confession. I saw it, a flicker of vulnerability, maybe even truth, but it wasn't enough. "You didn't love me," I said quietly. "You loved the version of me that made you look strong." She looked down, blinked fast, and said, "You've turned everyone against me." I wanted to say no, you did that yourself, but I didn't. I just stood, left a few dollars on the table, and walked out. It was raining outside. The kind of cold drizzle that soaks into your sleeves. I didn't have an umbrella. I didn't care. I felt light, hollow, and strangely clean. The fallout lasted months. Her following shrank. Some people stayed loyal. Others drifted away. She rebranded. No more healing through him. No more confessional captions. Her new tagline was, "Wellness through independence." I watched from a distance. Not out of obsession, but closure. I wanted to see how the story ended. It didn't end with a dramatic apology or public reckoning. It ended with quiet disappearance. Her posts became generic. Brand collaborations, lifestyle tips, travel pictures. The heart emojis and confessions were gone. She'd moved on to a new persona. I thought I'd feel angry, but all I felt was pity, because she couldn't stop performing. She just changed the costume. Meanwhile, my life started rebuilding in ways I didn't expect. I began volunteering at a local mental health group. Real, in-person work, no hashtags. The first night I showed up, I almost turned around. But sitting in that circle, hearing people talk about feeling unseen, something inside me steadied. I told a bit of my story, the short version. Not about Anna, just about being reduced to a label. After the session, one of the guys came up to me and said, "Thanks, it's good to know someone gets it." That was the first time in years I felt like my voice belonged to me. Months later, I got a letter. No return address, but the handwriting was hers. Inside, one line, "You win. I hope you're happy." No apology, no reflection, just defeat. I put it in a drawer and forgot about it, because it wasn't a victory I'd wanted. There's no winning when the person who hurt you can't even see what they did. What mattered was something smaller: peace. Therapy continued. Work stabilized. I started painting again, taking long walks, actually seeing the seasons change instead of scrolling through them. There were days I still heard her voice in my head, narrating everything I did, turning my life into captions. But over time, her voice faded. Now, when I sit quietly with my coffee, there's no audience, no camera, no performance, just me. Sometimes I think about how many people out there have a version of their life being told by someone else. Parents, partners, influencers, storytellers, people who mistake attention for connection. If I could tell them one thing, it would be this: you don't owe anyone your story, not even the people who say they love you, especially not them.